Welcome to another edition of Beyond 20's Cherwell Service Management Knowledge Share and How-Tos. My name is Mark, and today we're going to be discussing another specialized form control called the matrix selector. In a recent video, I discussed the usage of the special control related item picker. Today I'd like to focus on another commonly used special control called the matrix selector. It's a handy control if you have a multi-layered selection with a single outcome. The most common usage out of the box from Cherwell is the priority field in the incident object. We're going to focus on that control today, as it's already configured for us, and we can deconstruct the components fairly easily. So first, let's go ahead and take a look at the control itself. Open up a new blueprint here, and we'll go to the incident object and take a look at the form. As you can see, the priority field here, I go ahead and right-click and go ahead and hit the control properties. And what you're going to see here is a pop-up with quite a few priority properties available to you. The top section of options deals with the table from which we'll be getting the matrix selection field. So you can see there's a lookup table called priority matrix element, and it's a table contains fields that we can use to validate and populate various fields within the incident table. In this case, we're going to validate against a field called priority. And we're also going to go ahead and sort the matrix by a field called matrix order. And like a normal matrix, this is across then down. So, 1, 2, 3, first row, 4, 5, 6, second row, 7, 8, 9, third row. And then finally is the field that we're actually going to populate in the incident object. And that field is where we'll store the data we're going to get from that priority matrix element table. Now these next two sections are actually going to be the columns and rows of the matrix. You see the columns, we're going to have impact, and that is going to be stored in the impact field of the incident. And the rows would be urgency, again sorted in ascending order, and we're going to save that to the urgency field in the incident. So as you can see here, Cherwell has gone ahead and mapped the field names exactly between both tables. Now there's no specific rule that says you have to do that, but for simplicity's sake, this is probably a best practice. Now finally, we have a list of constraints at the bottom here. This can actually be very useful if you want to have multiple matrices show up on the same form for different purposes. In the case of incident, we actually can show different priority matrices based on type. So if it's an incident, we have one matrix. If it's a service request, it's a different matrix. The other way we actually can build those constraints, or the way that they have built the constraints out of the box, is actually by SLA priority group. Out of the box, you may notice that Cherwell has a couple of different priority groups for SLA, one for just standard and then one for email and calendaring. Now, the very first constraint here is what's going to deal with the incident type, whether it's an incident or service request, and we can edit that constraint real quick. And again, like most constraints, it's just a simple expression. Priority matrix element dot parent type is equal to this expression here, named expression priority parent type. We can take a quick look at that, and you can see. If incident.incident type is not empty, then it's the incident type, otherwise default incident. Now, of course, Cherwell defaults everything to an incident until you classify it, so in that same vein, they're defaulting this expression to incident as well. As I said, the second constraint here actually has to do with the SLA priority group. It's a pretty complex calculation and something we'll be covering in a later video. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the actual priority matrix element table. We'll see how it's constructed and how we get the data that we're looking for. Again, it's a lookup table. There it is there. And I'll go ahead and edit the form so you can kind of see the fields that get populated. First, we have that priority group that deals with the SLA, and that's of course a validated field. It can either be standard or it can be, again, email calendaring. Now that's out of the box, can be configured differently. Again, something we won't be discussing today, but just be aware that there is a way to base your priority matrix on the SLA that's being used for the ticket. Secondly, obviously, we choose whether it's an incident or service request. We assign it an urgency and an impact. Now these are simply text fields that you can fill with any text that you want. It doesn't really matter. You want to use words that mean something to your organization. Impact could be high, medium, low, or critical, high, medium, low. Urgency, same thing. Critical, high, medium, low. Could be any number of different combinations of words that are actually meaningful, impact and urgency, which ultimately calculate out to give you your priority. Now, priority is actually a numeric field. It's a text field, but it requires a number. The reason it requires a number kind of goes back to the SLA discussion. And if you don't use a number, then you would have to make a whole lot of different changes to your SLA infrastructure, and that can get very complicated. So we always recommend that you go ahead and just stick with the number scheme. Usually, a 1 to 5, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, whatever. And then if you wanted to display something different for your priorities, if you wanted words to be, high, medium, low for your priority, you could create another field of your own, call it, priority display type or display name, and then simply put put wording in there that would display on the incident field, but we would store the number in your priority field in the incident. So then your SLAs would continue to function properly. Finally, you have your matrix order. That just tells where it's going to show up in the matrix, again, across then down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's a 9 by 9 or 3 by 3, 9 square matrix. You can give it a description. This is not a required field. Maybe you can describe, in this case, the priority. Maybe, maybe not. Cherwell does not, in fact, describe any of its priorities out of the box, so that's entirely up to you. So, now let's go ahead and take a look at the actual table data to see how we actually constructed the matrix out of the box. Now, by default, this table is actually not in table management, but in version 5, we can actually see the data if we go back to the incident, edit our form, go into the field properties, go ahead and change this to a validated field against that lookup table. This is a neat little trick you can utilize for this sort of thing. And then we can actually just go directly in here and take a look at the table data. Now it comes up here, it's a little grayed out, but you can see actually we now have the entire lookup table at our fingertips. As you can see here, the parent types are selected incident or service request. Here's that priority group that has to do with SLAs, standard or email calendaring, and the matrix will show up differently for those two. This is your matrix order. Again, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And, obviously each one can only exist one time per type of matrix priority. Then the actual priority that will be calculated out, as you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A lot of additional ones here simply because we have very many different types within the same groups. Then your urgency and impact. Again, as you can see here, they've selected some standard names that might make sense or might be meaningful to your organization. If they aren't, obviously you can come in and you can change these. They can be whatever you want them to be. As you can see, the description field here, not filled in by Cherwell. You could fill that in to make these more meaningful, maybe to your group. You could also use that field as sort of a hover help if you wanted to. Finally, let's go ahead and take a look and see how this works in action. We'll go ahead and close down this. In fact, I'll just cancel it so we don't keep that going, validation going. I'll just come over here to the client, and what I've done is I've just created a new incident here for the same system, and you can see my priority here and how that matrix comes up. Now, this is the default matrix. I haven't classified anything, so there's no SLA group. It's just assuming this is an incident. And there's my matrix. So my impact across the top with nice little titles, urgency down the side, same titles. Again, my matrix selections, and I pick one of these and it will populate that field. You also see here it populates the other fields and gives me the impact and urgency as a label. Now, if I were to go ahead and classify this as, say, a service request, we've changed this now to a service request, my priorities actually change. Now you can see I have 3 different titles up top, a couple down the side. I don't have a full 9 selections here, and I only have 1, 2, 3 priorities. So you can see, basically, it's a very powerful way to drive end users and technicians to get an appropriate priority for incidents and service requests. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it's also used in change, and the problem object also uses a priority matrix. Of course, they don't have to be limited to just a priority matrix. We can build matrices for all manner of multi-layered selections. It's just another great tool in our arsenal when configuring a Cherwell system. I hope this has been helpful for many of you out there, and as always, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Beyond 20 LLC. Thanks for watching, and go have a look at our other instructional videos. Thank you.